This happened many years ago. I was 8 or so at the time, and every day I would walk home from my elementary school. My house was a few miles down the road, so my mother thought it would be safe enough for me to walk by myself. It was a few months into the school year when it started happening. A beat-up looking Toyota would slow down enough for a couple of white guys that looked like they were in their mid to late 20s to follow me and yell insults at me. I was chubby back then, so they would call me fat and much more hurtful things. I'll always remember the driver. He looked to be the oldest of the bunch, with greasy blonde hair hanging down and partially covering his pimpled scarred face. They would follow me until I reached the gas station that was halfway along my journey home. Then he would speed off laughing loudly. For the first couple of weeks I didn't tell anyone, thinking they would get tired of it. They didn't. A full month passed before I told my mother about it. She of course was rightly concerned about me and asked me how long it had been going on for. When I told her a month, she grew even more concerned. Her being a single mom, she couldn't pick me up from school because she was at work all day. So her solution was to send my older brother to meet me halfway, thinking this would deter them. It didn't. Another 4 months went by with them continuing to follow me and throw insults at me. Then suddenly it stopped. A whole month passed without them driving by, and we thought everything was safe again. We were wrong. Suddenly, out of the blue, I saw the old beat-up Toyota heading down the road towards me. Only the driver was in the car this time. He slowed down the car, flung open the passenger door, and proceeded to yell for me to get into his car. I was so scared I couldn't even speak. I just shook my head and tried to walk faster. He continued to follow me, demanding that I get into his car. I'll never forget the look on his face as he yelled at me. It was so full of rage. We finally got to the gas station and I made a break for it. I ran inside the gas station and up to the attendant. I told him what was happening and he let me hide behind the corner. The driver pulled into the gas station, hopped out of his car and came in. He demanded that the gas station attendant tell him where I was, claiming I was his daughter and I had jumped out of his car. The gas station attendant glanced down at me and I shook my head, wildly mouthing that I did not know this man. The gas station attendant said he didn't know what he was talking about and that he had to leave the store immediately. The driver began to yell wildly and started walking around the store looking for me. The gas station attendant said he was going to call the police if the man did not leave. The man turned to him and said something I'll never forget. "I'll get that bitch one way or another." The driver stormed out the gas station and left. I sat there on the floor crying for what felt like hours. The gas station attendant called the police and had them come over. When the police arrived, the attendant told them what had happened. A police officer knelt down beside me and asked me about my side of the story. I told him everything, how him and a couple of others had been following me for months, how they would follow me and insult me, how they suddenly stopped and how he tried to get me into his car. I don't remember much afterwards other than them calling my mother and her meeting them at our house. They took my mother's statement and then left. After that, my mother changed her work hours in order to come get me every day. For years I lived in fear that that man with the greasy hair and pimpled scarred face would eventually get me. So, to the man who followed me for months, insulting me and eventually trying to get me into his car, I'm not that scared little girl anymore. We better never meet. This happened way back in October of 2006. At that time I was just a 19-year-old kid, always on the lookout for adventure. One Friday night, after wrapping up my shift at McDonald's, I met up with some friends who suggested we check out this haunted location called White's Bridge. My one buddy Brandon said he had recently learned about it and began telling us the legends associated with a 100-year-old wood-covered bridge. Never one to turn down a spooky experience, so we all piled into my green Ford Taurus and headed out on our journey. Brandon gave us directions, guiding me off the main road, and within minutes, we were on the dirt back roads surrounded by woods and cornfields. Our only point of reference was a blinking cell tower off in the distance. We could tell we were getting further from the city as our cell phones began slowly losing their service. as we rode deeper and deeper into what legitimately felt like the absolute middle of nowhere. Brandon repeated the legends associated with the bridge. Back in the early 1900s, a local farmer discovered that his beloved wife had been cheating on him, and in a fit of rage he killed her and her lover after discovering them in the act. After committing the cold-blooded murder, the farmer left his home and wandered the dirt roads in a daze. He eventually came upon White's Bridge, where the realization of what he had done finally began to sink in, and he decided he would rather die than face the consequences of his actions. He hoisted a rope up and over one of the bridge's rafters and hung himself. As far as I can tell now, the story is complete fiction, but we totally believed it at the time. After a long bumpy ride, Brandon instructed me to turn right on an off-road. I wouldn't have even noticed it was there had he not pointed it out. I took the turn and there before us was White's Bridge. It looked like something straight out of a horror film. An old wood-covered bridge, aged by time, sitting alone above a river deep in the middle of nowhere. We parked the car on the other side of the road and got out to explore. Immediately catching our eyes was a scarecrow lying abandoned at the entrance to the bridge. My friend Mike, who was known as somewhat of a risk-taker, and a stupid one at that, picked up the scarecrow and lit it on fire. The hay body burst up into a ball of flames and Mike waved it around proudly next to the old dry wood bridge. Realizing the risk, I told him to throw the damn thing in the river and put it out, which he thankfully did. After making sure there weren't any rogue embers that could ignite the bridge, Brandon suggested we get back into the car and pull it onto the bridge. He explained that the legend was that if you parked your car in the middle of the bridge, put it in neutral and killed the engine, the spirit of the dead farmer would push the vehicle forward to get it off the bridge. Naturally, we had to try this. We piled back in and did exactly as he said. We parked halfway across the rickety old bridge and killed the engine. We sat in the pitch black, saying nothing, waiting for something, anything to happen. The only sounds were the creaking of the bridge, the river flowing beneath us, and footsteps. Suddenly the back driver's side door opens and a woman abruptly enters the back seat, cramming it next to my friends back there. She looked to be in her late 20s, early 30s, long straight black hair, slim and wearing a plaid shirt and blue jeans. It's been a while, but this is essentially how I remember the conversation going. "I saw your fire signal for me," she said. Wait, what?" I replied, totally freaked out and at a complete loss for words. "I'm so glad you came. My boyfriend's car broke down that way. I need a ride back." My brain was doing its best to compute the situation. "I'm sorry, but who are you?" I asked. "What are you doing out here?" "I told you," she responded curtly. "My boyfriend's car broke down over there. Can you please just give me a ride back so I don't have to walk all the way?" She was pointing ahead towards a narrow road that forked off to the right on the other side of the bridge. My friend Mike, the scarecrow burner, and ever the gentleman added, "I mean, if you need a place to stay, you're more than welcome to come crash at my place. I got plenty to drink," and I interrupted him. "No, lady, listen, I'm sorry, I don't know who you are. You just got in our car and this is all really weird. You could be an axe murderer for all I know. I'm sorry, you have to get out." She glared at me in the rear view mirror. If looks could kill, I would have been done for. "But you signaled for me," she responded in an irritated tone. "We weren't signaling for you. Get out!" She let out an angry sigh and got out, walking back in the direction from which she came and disappearing into the night. I started the engine right back up and looked at my friends. They all had looks of disbelief on their face. Without saying a word, I put the car in drive and slowly rolled forward and off the bridge. We needed to turn around and go back across the bridge to get back to where we had come from, and the only way to do that was to pull onto the side road that the woman said her boyfriend's car broke down, and then reverse. As I pulled onto the side road, my headlights illuminated the 3 posted signs that I hadn't been able to see from the bridge. "No trespassing, private property, and do not enter." Looking up the road, there was no sign of the woman. Wherever she went, it didn't appear she went that way. I didn't want to stick around though, so I backed up and crossed the bridge again, and from there began the journey home. We didn't have much to say on the ride home. I think we were all equally stunned, except for Mike. who asked if he knew anyone that would be awake at this hour that he could score some weed from. I visited Whitesbridge a couple of times after that, but nothing of note happened in my subsequent visits. Sadly, some diligence burned down the old Whitesbridge some years ago. It was rebuilt, but from what I hear, it's just not the same as original. I don't have any plans to go and check it out. To the strange lady who entered my car out of the middle of nowhere at 2 a.m., let's not meet.